Have you ever felt like something unseen is pulling the strings in your life? It's not your imagination. There's a hidden force working against you right now. This invisible enemy affects your peace, your relationships, and even your connection with God. In this video, we're going to expose greed for what it really is, a satanic strategy designed to corrupt your soul and separate you from God. We'll uncover the shocking ways greed manifests in our lives, often disguised as ambition or prudence. But don't lose hope. God's given us powerful ways to fight back. Stick around to learn how to spot this enemy and break free, opening the door to real fulfillment and a closer walk with God. Have you ever felt a constant urge for more, even when you have enough? It's like an invisible force pushing you to get, achieve, and gather more stuff. This force is greed, a sneaky influence that often hides as ambition or being smart with money. Greed works in tricky ways. You might think you're just being careful with your finances or working hard to succeed. But what if these good-sounding habits are covering up something darker? Greed twists how we see things, making us always feel like we don't have enough. When greed takes over, it messes with our minds and our spiritual life. Have you noticed how chasing after more and more stuff never seems to make you happy? It's a never-ending cycle. The Bible talks a lot about the dangers of loving money. Paul even says it's a root of all kinds of evil. It's not just about the cash, it's about how wanting it so badly can mess up what's really important in life. But here's the scary part. Greed isn't just a bad habit. It might actually be a weapon being used against us. Greed has a bigger, more evil purpose than we realize. It's trying to corrupt who we are at our core. The Bible calls greed a type of idol worship. When we let the pursuit of wealth take over, we're basically putting money and stuff in the place where God should be. The book of Ephesians says that greedy people, who it calls idolaters, won't inherit God's kingdom. So greed isn't just a personal weakness, it's a spiritual attack meant to pull us away from God. It messes with our priorities and twists our values. But how does greed fit into the devil's big plan? Why is it such a powerful weapon against us? That's what we're going to talk about next, as we look closer at how greed connects to the enemy's schemes. What if the things you're chasing are actually pushing you away from true happiness? It's a sobering thought. Let's look at Satan's main goal, to separate us from God. One of his most powerful tools, greed. Greed isn't just wanting more stuff. It's a clever plan to mess up our priorities and values, slowly turning our hearts away from God. When we're always wanting more money, more things, more status, where's the space for God? The Bible shows us how greed can corrupt even good people. Take the rich young ruler who came to Jesus. He followed the rules and lived right. But when Jesus told him to sell everything and give to the poor, he left sad. His love for his wealth stopped him from following Jesus fully. Then there's Ananias and Sapphira in Acts. They sold some property but kept part of the money while pretending to give it all to the church. Their greed made them lie to God himself, and the punishment was quick and harsh. Greed fights against God's plan for us by making us trust in stuff instead of him. We start thinking our safety and happiness come from what we own or how much money we have, not from God's care. Paul called greed a type of idol worship when he wrote to the Colossians. When we let greed grow in our hearts, it's like we're bowing down to money and things instead of God. This change happens slowly, but it's really harmful. Our prayers shift from asking what God wants us to do with what he's given us to just asking for more things. We start judging our worth by how much we have. It's important to know the difference between using money wisely and being greedy. By seeing how Satan uses greed to drive us away from God, we can better protect our hearts against this sneaky temptation. Have you ever wondered why Jesus talked about money so much? He knew how easily we can get caught up in wanting more stuff. The story of the rich fool shows us why this matters. Here's how it goes. A wealthy guy has a great harvest. He decides to build bigger barns to store all his extra grain. He thinks, now I can relax and enjoy life. but God calls him a fool, saying he'll die that very night. This story shows how different our plans can be from what God sees as important. The rich man wasn't wrong for having money or planning ahead. His mistake was thinking that having lots of stuff would make him safe and happy. Jesus taught us that things on earth don't last. He said it's better to store up treasures in heaven instead of worrying about stuff that can be stolen or destroyed. So what does it mean to be rich toward God? It's not about how much money you have. It's about knowing that everything we have comes from God. When we're rich toward God, we're willing to use what we have for His purposes. We find our security in God, not in our possessions. To fight greed and become rich toward God, we need to trust Him and be generous. When we trust God to take care of us, we don't need to hoard things. And when we share what we have, we loosen greed's hold on us and find joy in giving. This story makes us think about how we view our stuff. Are we just trying to get more for ourselves? Or are we using what we have in ways that matter to God? It challenges us to care more about what lasts forever than what we can get here on earth. What if letting go could bring you more freedom and joy than holding on? In our materialistic world, overcoming greed seems tough, but it's a battle we all face, between what we want and what we really need. Ever felt torn between wanting more stuff and knowing you should be happy with what you have? You're not alone. The Bible talks about this a lot. Paul says being content is the real win and warns us about loving money too much. So how do we beat greed? Here are some practical ideas. 1. Be grateful. Try writing down 3 things you're thankful for each day. 2. Give more. Set a goal to donate a certain amount of your income. 3. Think before you buy. Ask yourself if you really need something or if you're just trying to feel better. 4. Wait it out. Give yourself a day before buying stuff you don't really need. 5. Help others. Volunteer your time. It helps you focus on giving instead of getting. Imagine how these could change your life. As you practice being content and generous, you might find yourself feeling more peaceful and satisfied. Remember, this isn't about being poor or never enjoying things. It's about finding real happiness in your relationships with God and others, not in stuff. When we overcome greed, we find a contentment that money can't buy. Ready to give it a try? Start with one of these ideas. You might be surprised how quickly your outlook changes. Every small step towards generosity and contentment is a win against greed. As we wrap up our journey through the dangers of greed, let's focus on practical steps to combat it in our lives. True wealth comes from love, joy, peace, and contentment. It's time to take action and align our lives with God's purposes. Here are some specific ways to break free from greed and live more generously. 1. Set a giving goal. Commit to donating a portion of your income to a cause you care about. Start small if needed, but make it a regular habit. 2. Practice gratitude. Each day, write down 3 things you're thankful for. This simple habit can shift your focus from what you lack to what you have. 3. Simplify your life. Clear out your space and donate items you don't need. This can help you realize how little you actually need to be happy. 4. Volunteer your time. Find a local charity or community organization where you can serve others regularly. This often helps you feel more fulfilled and purposeful. 5. Take a break from shopping. Choose a period where you only buy essentials. Use this time to think about your spending habits and what really matters to you. Remember, fighting greed is an ongoing process. Which of these actions speaks to you the most? Are you ready to take that first step towards a more generous life? Your choice today could start you on a path to a more fulfilling, purpose-driven life.